Shalom, family. Exodus Shemot 1 ended with Pharaoh's second death decree, and that was every Hebrew boy cast into the Nile. Now we're in Shemot chapter 2, and we'll see the Most High turn that decree on its head as one Levite family refuses to let fear rule, and the river meant for death becomes the place of rescue. Shemot 2 verses 1 and 2. And the man of the house of Levi went and married a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bore a son, and she saw that he was a lovely child, and she hid him 3 months. The children of Israel were encouraged to marry within their tribe. And so Amram, who is the father of Moshe, he got married to Jochebed, right? And there are some references to Amram and Jochebed, with Jochebed being the aunt of Amram, because we remember that Levi had a son, and then had Amram, then Amram had Moshe. So Moshe is actually the seventh generation from Abraham. There's a reference in Exodus chapter 6, verse 20, and it says, And Amram took for himself Jochebed, his father's sister, as his wife. So that's makes her his aunt. And she bore him Aharon and Moshe. And the years of the life of Amram were 137. So this was before the written uh, law that was given at the Mount Sinai, which would have prevented certain kind of familial marriages. We also see in Numbers chapter 26 and verse 59. And it says, And the name of Amram's wife was Jochebed, the daughter of Levi, who was born to Levi in Mizraim. And Amram, she bore Aharon and Moshe and their sister Miriam. So it's confirmed. Once you have a couple and they're married, it is expected in those days that they would have children. The average full-term birth for a child is 9 months, and sometimes you'll have the prematures at 7 months. So even when there's a decree to kill all boy babies, families can actually hide couples can actually hide the children for as long as say 7 months. But if the child is born on the seventh month, then it would mean that they only have 3 months to actually do better at hiding before Pharaoh and his personnel who will be watching and monitoring the Hebrew families to come and unalive their children. So of course they got married, and there's no mention of contraceptives in Torah, so you will realize that once couples get married, children come within 9 months, and you'll have the rare instances where after 9 months there's no child. So Amram and Jochebed, they wasted no time, and this is a very good thing. The reproductive act is a continuation of creation, and it's a good thing even under the decree, because the Creator says, "Be fruitful and multiply." So they couldn't trying to do any spilling when they know that that's against the law, and also knowing that it's actually life that the Creator encourages, and they were doing the right thing, and they must have been faithful, knowing that even with a decree out, the Creator will protect their children. Verses 3 to 10. And when she could hide him no longer, she took an ark of wicker for him, and coated it with tar and pitch, and put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the edge of the river. And the sister stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her young women were walking by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her female servant to get it, and opened it, and saw the child. And see, The baby wept. So she had compassion on him and said, "This is one of the children of the Hebrews." And his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." And the young woman went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me. Then I shall pay your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moshe, saying, "Because I have drawn him out of the water." So there we see, after the Levite couple conceived and bore a son, during the time of Pharaoh's decree, we also see where Moshe, he was born, and we saw where he was rescued, and there's an attempt to adopt him. This is a protected child from the line of Levi, coming through Kohath, Amram, down to Moshe. And we see where the authorities, they were keen on knowing when children were born and when they would be full term, when there would be marriages. And so unless the baby was premature, then they would definitely know when to line up themselves to take away and seize the Hebrew people's children. So 9 months after marriage was the expected time, and the authorities would be watching. So we see in verse 5, there's a plan that the mother did to protect her child, and it so happened that Pharaoh's daughter went to her spa, which is basically the river, where young women would go by the riverside. And she saw the ark among the reeds. She sent her family to female servants to get it. I must say, as a saxophone player, I'm familiar with reeds. It's like a bamboo-like instrument that has one end for softness for the lip, and the other end is for rough pressing, like for iron or metal. And so that was the kind of material that the ark was among. And so it was able to preserve the child even in the water. So it was very creative of the mother to put the child in that kind of enclosure. So when Pharaoh's daughter went and saw the child and she opened it, the baby wept. And so the Creator had it that it impressed upon the compassion of Pharaoh's daughter. And she could tell that this one was a Hebrew child. So the Creator protected Moshe and marked him for specific and a particular purpose. So Pharaoh's daughter called the nurse from the Hebrew woman, and it happened that Miriam, Moshe's real sister, true sister, was looking on as this was a part of the plan. So she asked, "Take this child and nurse him for me." But this is very good a request, because this request was directed directly at the mother. Can you imagine a mother being paid to keep her child? Any mother would happily do this job even without the pay. But this being paid is a bonus, and she could not disclose that she was in fact the true mother of the child. In today's situation, you have mothers get paid to keep their children, but that's where the situation with the father goes awry, and the father become negligent on their duties, and so they might, in an act of revenge, the mother will say, if it's 30,000 to take care of the child for a particular period, the mother will say, "Give me 50,000 just to nurse her own child." And this is how families have the situation in families. deteriorated even to this day. Pharaoh's daughter was the one that named Moshe, and she called him Moshe because he was drawn out. We know that Joseph, while he was governor of Mizraim, he kept his Hebrew name, right? He was given a name, a Mizraim name, Zaphenath Paneah, which meant revealer of secrets. But Moshe's name that was given to him, which meant drawn out, that name actually stuck with Moshe, and it's for a reason. We see in verse 11, it says, well, it's actually verse 10, it says, the child grew up. She brought him to Pharaoh, and he became her son, right? So we're seeing growth there. But in verse 11, we're seeing another growing up mention. It says, and in those days it came to be when Moshe was grown, that he went out to his brothers and looked at their burdens, and he saw a Midian striking a Hebrew. So we're seeing two grow up there. We see him, it mentioned in verse 10 and verse 11, and one could represent physical growth and the other representing gaining position of authority among the heathen, just as Joseph gained position of authority. We had it with Joseph, then we had it with Moshe. True leaders set their eyes and heart upon the needs of their people. And so it's no coincidence that when Moshe grew up, maybe in his teens, that he saw the burdens of his people, because his mother would have taught him and secretly let him know that he is indeed a Hebrew. He saw a Midian striking a Hebrew, and the Hebrew is one of his brothers, because you look out for your own people. Politicians today do not look out for people. They do not have an open eye where they will see the suffering of the people. They'd rather pounce upon the innocent rather than to go to their rescue. Moshe was different. He actually responded. Let's read and see the response that Moshe made for his fellow Hebrew brother. Verse 12, and it says, so he turned this way and that way, and when he saw no one, he struck the Midian and hid him in the sand. And he went out the second day and saw two Hebrew men fighting. And he said to the one who did the wrong, why do you strike your neighbor? And he said, who made you a head and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Midian? And Moshe feared and said, truly the matter is known. And Pharaoh heard of this matter, and he sought to kill Moshe. But Moshe fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. So it's good though that Moshe identified with his people. He identified with their plight, and he responded in a way that caused the unaliving of a Mizraim. And of course, he went. He took a flight for it. But before he acted in defense, do we notice that Moshe looked? I think it says that he looked one way and then he looked another way. So he looked both directions, right? So he basically scanned the area before striking the Egyptians. And I'm thinking that, before we jump into a situation today, what persons will do is flip out their camera and post it on YouTube, post it on social media, rather than defending the downtrodden. On a higher level, it's good to consider the implication of what you do before you do an action. And so looking on all sides of the issue to see the positive and the negative, the risk, that is an indication that I'm getting from this chapter. Moshe didn't just do something, he checked before he did something. So it was not a spur of the moment action. And that is exemplary. But the thing is, he, the moment you lift a hand against a fellow, it makes you wicked. So in verse 13, he saw the Hebrews fighting each other. I don't know if these were good Hebrew guys or bad Hebrew guys, but they were fighting each other. So there's some badness in it, right? And if these were fellow, it means that they were dealing in the same kind of dealing. So if they were dealing in good, they were dealing good. They were dealing in evil, they were dealing in evil, whether in evil or good. But the response was basically when Moshe intervened, who made you a prince and judge over us? So we actually seeing that this person in conflict is actually having prophetic eyes because he's actually recognizing that Moshe, within a short time or soon, he will be a leader and a judge over them, right? Moshe was not aware of that as yet, though. But what we know about Moshe at that time, he just grew up, so he must have been a young man. And he must have been frightened to know that the wicked Hebrew, there were Hebrews that were wicked, and those Hebrews that were gossiping, and those Hebrews that were informers in Israel. And they would have informed to Pharaoh what he did. So that must have been frightening because Moshe thought that what he did the day before was actually a secret and no one else knew, having scanned the place properly. And if I was in Moshe's situation, I was wondering, I really shouldn't be helping these Hebrews because I did well to defend their dignity, and there they gossiped and informed on me. And informers, they have their reward, especially when it's done with an evil intent. So Moshe realized that he had to run for it. And it's kind of hard to want to help people like that when you're trying to help people and they are not seeing the good in what you're doing. And you realize that it's actually a risk when you try and help somebody these days. It's not a case where that they'll openly embrace and show an appreciation for what you have done for them. So it's very hard to try and help people who don't act as if they deserve the help. And this was the case with these two Hebrew fellows that were fighting. Verses 16 to 22. Let's read that. It says, and the priest of Midian and had 7 daughters. And they came and drew water, and they filled the troughs to water their father's flock. But the shepherds came and drove them away. Then Moshe stood up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. And they came to Reuel the father, and he said, how is it that you have come so soon today? And they said, a Midian rescued us from the hand of the shepherds. And he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock. And he said to his daughters, and where is he? Why did you leave the man? Call him and let him eat bread. And Moshe agreed to dwell with the man, and he gave Zipporah his daughter to Moshe. And she bore him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, I have become a sojourner in foreign land. So Moshe escaped Pharaoh's wrath, and he went to a strange land, and this was the land where the priest of Midian was dwelling. Some recognize this as the modern day Ethiopia. It's interesting though that having flee from trouble, he went to chill out at a well. Do we remember any other stories in Torah that spoke to the well? Spoke about what happens usually happen at the well? It's like a chill and hang out spot. He was not at the well to watch flocks or to watch the water flow, right? When Yitzhak and Yaakov met their wives, well, Yitzhak, his father's servant, found a wife for him at a well. Jacob, when he fled from his brother Esau, he also found Rachel at a well. So if you see a young man at a well, do not be surprised that he's looking for some peace in his life, right? So he found a woman at the well. Finding a woman at the well, hopefully would bring peace. Although I've heard stories of bad women at the well, right? So a man needs to have discernment and not just go and take a woman that is at the well because his forefathers would have found lovely women at the well. But so be it. While he was there, He saw not one, not two, but seven daughters of a chief turning up. Moshe could have taken all as his wives because there was no law had been given to say that a man cannot marry one or two or three sisters. Matter of fact, the patriarch Jacob married two sisters, so he could have, right? But what happened the next was that some shepherds came and drove them away, drove the seven young ladies away. And at that time, it gave Moshe the opportunity to transform in a Superman, to be there at night and in shining armor. He defended the daughters of Jethro and he defended their flock. So when these daughters went home, they said to you know to to their father, "A Mitzrayim rescued us." So we know that Moshe is not a Mitzrayim; he's actually an Hebrew Israelite, right? But maybe his mode of dress, was that represented him as a Mizraite, or it's a case where the Hebrews and the Mizraites, and they all looked the same in terms of appearance. So the outward appearance could be identical, but the identity is very deeper. And Moshe was by no means a Mizraite; he was actually an Israelite. So as we read this, we saw where the father responded and said, "Look, man, where's the man that rescued you? Why did you leave the man? Call him and let him come and eat bread." And you know, when persons come and eat together at a table back in those days, it was no ordinary thing. This is the place where covenants are established. And before you know it, verse 22, Moshe was made family with as a foreigner with the daughter of Jethro. So Moshe dwelt with a man, and he gave Zipporah his daughter to Moshe, just like that, just by hanging out at the well and defending women. We need some more young men like that who will defend women when they are in every way possible, even without looking for any reciprocation in return. This is an Ethiopian woman, and later we're going to see where Miriam and Aharon had an issue with it because the practice was to marry within your own family. But just as with Jochebed and Amram, they got married, they got children. So it is with Moshe and Zipporah. They got married and they got a son called him Gershom. And he said, "Because I have been a stranger in a foreign land." So it's very good to know that, you know, even though Moshe was in problem, he was able to establish a family and get a son. And all praise to the Creator for the expansion of family. Verses 23 to the end, and it says, "And it came to be after these many days that the sovereign of Mitzrayim died, and the children of Israel groaned because of the slavery, and they cried out. Their cry came up to Elohim because of the slavery. And Elohim heard their groaning, and Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, and with Yishak, and with Jacob. And Elohim looked on the children of Israel, and Elohim knew." So, with man's limited description, we'll see where we describe the Creator as hearing, seeing, feeling, knowing, remembering. The children cried, Israel cried, and with a turned eye, the father will hear and be harmed. There's no loving father that's going to permanently turn his eyes from his crying child. And this is not just a cry, but this was like a covenant cry. And so, yeah, the Creator's attention and heart are turned to us when we look to Him. He sees and knows what is being done to us, in our situation, in the homes, school, play, in our communities. And if He were to hide His face from us, we would be devoured. So we must be confident knowing that He is actually there, looking over, ensuring our well-being. This is a very interesting chapter. And as I've read through it, we see efforts to destroy family, right? But we must continue to keep building families despite how the system is set. You'll have some teenagers nowadays saying they do not want to have children because that's what they're taught in school. We'll have other women saying that they don't want to have any children because it's so costly. Men are afraid of going into commitments and having establishing family because the court system is set against them. And so we must stop, and we must refuse to let fear rule our house. And we must treat every child as an act of faith that the Creator's purpose is stronger than any decree. So go for it, those persons listening. Tonight, tomorrow, soonest, get the children going. The Creator, He sees, He hears, and He will come through for us. I reach out, especially appeal to the righteous women, mothers, and the sisters, and even the pagan princesses that are around. Let us stand against the system and let's overturn any governmental decree that goes against the establishment of family. Let us use courage, timing, and wisdom, just like the others have done in the past, and ensure that we trust the Creator to protect us. And you might be surprised to know that even those that were working against us will have to work for us, just as we saw Pharaoh's daughter had to work for the Hebrews to adopt the boy that was to be eventually the deliverer of the children of Israel. The leaders, they should use their power when they see injustice. And what we can learn from Moshe's mix of courage and missteps is that leaders must set their eyes on burdens and act, but they must also learn to control anger and rely on the Creator's timing, not just their own impulse to fix things. So we saw Moshe got into a little trouble there. It may have been dealt with differently if he had turned to the Creator, but we saw he got mercies and he escaped. And he went to Midian and he found family. And that experience actually helped him in shaping him as a shepherd to be able to come and return and deliver the children of Israel. Came out of his palace, came out of his comfort zone, and he learned how to protect the weak. He learned how to serve quietly and secretly, and he learned how to lead the flocks and to take care of a family. And that prepared him to be the ultimate shepherd for Israel. Shemot 2 is rich in instructions for us, and it teaches me about the Creator's heart. And it reminds me that when his people cry out on a bondage, he will respond. Their their cry, our cry, is never noise to the Creator. He hears, he remembers his covenant, and he sees and he knows. And even when nothing on the surface seems to change, yet he will come through. It shows us that while Pharaoh's plan in the palace, there's Creator working through kitchens, riverbanks, and wells. When the system pushes toward death, he still raises up life, shapes a deliverer in exile, and listens closely to every groan of Israel. From birth to calling, Moshe's story reminds us that the Most High is never silent. He sees, he hears, he knows, and he acts. Shalom.